the sci-fi horror is interesting too. I mean, the obvious one we've discussed is Alien, which I think is sci-fi horror. It's a bit where the crew is picked off one by one alien, and the first one they've ever come across. So that's a bit like a slasher film in a way, without the knife, I suppose, in terms of
Or even Agatha
being picked
Christie.
off one by one and the suspense. Whereas if you look at Aliens, which is a very good film in its own right, James Cameron, it's more akin to Terminator than it is to Psycho. If you,
Mhm.
It's action sci-fi, I think.
it's more of an action sci-fi. Another really good sci-fi horror I thought was The Thing. It's a film I only saw about a year ago at a Halloween special at the Astor, but The Thing is a John
Awesome.
Carpenter film, and it's definitely sci-fi. It's an alien creature that is a shape changer in the Arctic, but I think that's certainly got horror aspects to it, and it's akin, I suppose, in genre to the original Alien. Um, we've got the horror comedy films such as Scream and American Psycho, which I think you could say American Psycho has comedic elements to it in terms of his obsession.
They're very dark.
Obsession with 80s films. Yeah.
Mhm.
But I think one I would like to mention just before I finish would be it's not really genre bending, but I think it shows how effective horror films can be on a low budget. And the amount of suspense it draws is the Blair Witch Project in terms of the original Blair Witch Project.
Definitely hard.
There's a recent sequel I thought was quite effective on Netflix, but the original film, although it might leave you wanting more at the end of it, I think was phenomenal in terms of how much money it made, in terms of a shoestring budget, and the sense of foreboding it generates in terms of its themes. So, yeah, I like that one. It's not in my top three necessarily horror films, but I think it's pretty effective. But I've always preferred the suspense in horror films and just flat out gore. Films that rely too much on gore, they may be horror films, but they're not necessarily what I think have the key to it in terms of effective horror films.
Yeah,
Although
and we all
one of
definitely
the
have our
most
different tastes.
I'm a
one of
gore
the most
hound. I'm
unpleasant.
unrepentant.
Yeah, Henry's a gore person for sure.
Yeah, I think. Yeah, sorry, Henry.
But it's not
But I think
mandatory, you know.
one of the most
I am not
funny
into
story.
gore.
One of the most effective gore films, which left me squirming in my seats when I saw it at the cinema, was the original Wolf Creek film, which is an Australian film.
Oh yeah,
And
yeah.
about 5 years ago, maybe between 5 and 10 years ago, I was walking past the nearest service station, and I said to my partner, "Look who's in there browsing in the service station. It's that guy from Wolf Creek, like the main character." And he didn't believe me, but it was definitely I forget his name, but
It was the actor who
psycho.
played him.
Oh, John Jarrett. His name's John Jarrett. Yeah,
But I
so
mean,
he looked
it
just
was
as,
really the actor you saw.
yeah, it was him. It was definitely
Was
him.
your partner
It was,
afraid?
unless he's got a doppelganger. Yeah. So I didn't
Yeah,
go
I think
into
the first
cinema.
one was pretty effective. That guy was really sadistic as hell.
Yeah, it was hard to watch actually. Okay,
Yeah,
yeah. So
I think
those are my
I don't think
thoughts.
the second
Yeah.
one worked, but I like the first one.
Yeah, and there's a series I think as well, a TV series of Wolf Creek, but I haven't seen it. Yeah.
Speaking of Australian kind of tense thriller kind of movies, what do you think of Road Games? Have you seen Road Games with Stacy Keach and
Jamie Lee
you haven't
Curtis.
seen it? Yeah. What
No, I
did you
haven't
think of
seen it.
that? I liked it.
Yeah, it was by the director who did Psycho 2, I think.
Yeah, I
maybe
want to
wrong.
say it's Brian Trenchard Smith who did a lot of Australian, but it might not be. It might
Let me
be
see.
another Australian guy of that stature. But yeah,
Yeah, it was. I mean, it only has
talking
one
about Frank-
gore scene, but
yeah, it's just very tense though.
oh
you
yeah,
know. Terrorizing. They're terrorizing poor Stacy and of course Jamie Lee Curtis, right?
He's in a lot of horror films.
That was a stunt casting.
yeah. Richard
Like,
Franklin.
hey,
That's
mate,
who
let's
directed
get
it, yeah.
Jamie Lee Curtis in here.
I love
Yeah,
Jamie Lee
Richard
Curtis.
Franklin made both of those.
He's in the
Mhm.
Fog as well. Even.
Franklin, yeah, okay. So,
Yeah.
you know.
I thought that was really huge around like the Silence of the Lambs because
Yes.
like in the 80s the slashers were not respected. There was
I
a
hated him
lot
at the
of-
time. I like him
There
now.
was a
Mhm.
lot of contempt
I'm not a fan.
for the slasher films at the time, and I wasn't watching them. I still haven't
Yeah, I
seen
wasn't.
most of them, and like, but And like the like Friday the 13th, Nightmare on Elm Street, Halloween, all those things, those were considered trash. And it's like, oh, well, Silence of the Lambs isn't that. And it does kind of go back to like in the 60s where it was a different vibe, but it was like horror films were kiddie Saturday matinee fare. So it's like these are like immature genres, and Silence of the Lambs is a mature movie, so it can't really be that. And so like
and see, that's the same
science
idea of
fiction,
elevated
fantasy,
horror.
and horror have this reputation. Oh, that's like greasy kid stuff. Same with comic
And I feel
books.
like that gets into like genre stuff in general too, because people also look down, like, people who are into science fiction look down on horror. People who are into like high fantasy look down on low fantasy and science fiction. People who are into like really, really quote unquote good artsy science fiction look down on fantasy and horror. And then people who don't do genre at all look down on genre stuff. And it's like, can we not admit that art can be good no matter what genre it fits into?
And then like people read Harlequin romances.
Well, no,
I have a friend who writes Harlequin romance novels, and they're not really my thing because most of them are far too straight for me, but more power to people who enjoy that. I'm for it.
Here's an idea.
Cool.
I approach art case by case.
Yeah.
Artist by artist, movie by movie, whatever. I don't go, well, I'm going to automatically never watch a movie of this genre, or I'm never going to listen to any rap ever. I mean,
which is also a racist stance. So there you go.
Well, I don't think being against hip hop is racist, but it often is. It's often
the most racially motivated statement, though, because people who are saying like I hate rap and I hate hip hop, like period, across the board, have a very stereotypical image in mind of what those genres are, and that's based on like, oh, well, it's going to be like this very like Black urban lower socioeconomic status thing, and this is the stuff that they sing about, and that's not my thing. Would it be not necessarily?
But would it be racist to say you don't like country music?
That you don't like what?
If you don't like country music, is that racist? Because
I feel like that has less of a strong association, like racially, because
prejudice.
Country is more about region and more about I think country is more of a region thing.
Charlie,
they're both sociocultural things. They're both where you have country music and a sociocultural thing around it, just like reggae. And you could say reggae as people hating reggae as being against the culture, like Rastafarianism, or being racist, or
and both. A lot of people also like talk smack about reggaeton, and I'm just like, how dare you? So there you go.
I love reggae. I absolutely love reggae.
I love reggaeton in particular. I actually did like a whole paper on it.
That's interesting you mentioned that, because I knew a guy at a shelter who's like, he loved reggae, but he hated reggaeton.
Well, and there's a snobbery across all these genres. I mean, for instance, people who are into like racist white knight kids. We used to call them white knights when I was a kid. White kids who are trying to be blacker than black. And a lot of them, like, they love their Eminem and all those kind of heroes, and they like some black artists, but they're still like racists. And it's like, and jazz
like
is a weird thing too. I mean,
and Do the Right Thing.
Exactly. And jazz is thing where people go, oh, I like jazz, and it's like, jazz is, I'm not talking about jazz fusion or later developments or European jazz, but just jazz strictly from 1920s to say 1980s straight through. 99% of the musicians were black. So to me, if I listen to jazz from that period, to be honest, I get a reverse racism feel. Like if it's a white guy, I'll definitely listen to it with an open mind. I might love it, but I'm definitely a little like, well, it might not be as authentic. And I'm the same way with blues. I prefer listening to Lightning Hopkins to say John Mayall. That's just me though, but not saying John Mayall can't have great albums, but it's good to know context. It's not major important, but to me, I think
you need to know cultural context about like any art form to fully appreciate it, no matter what it is.
Because you can appreciate it more, or you can criticize it more.
Right.
Even amongst quote unquote white music. I mean, if you think about how there's snobbery for like most hard rock people against like say pop, like okay, like they'll consider say Fleetwood Mac and Heart. Okay, but ABBA,
they're very white.
I went through a whole ABBA phase in high school, you guys. Like, it's catchy.
I like it. What were you going to say, Bill?
I don't want to start. I would just be very careful about saying anything like, I don't like this particular kind of music is a racist statement, because to me, music, like what you like, don't like what you don't like, as long as you're not saying people who like it are somehow defective or inferior in your mind because they like something.
Yeah, and I think the problem is that for a lot of
jazz
people who
does
say
nothing
things like
for
that,
me.
that's the implication. I don't think that's necessarily true across the board for every individual who says that, but I think it's a big enough problem that I'm wary when people say things like that. I think that's a good way to put it. I'm wary.
I mean,
I'm just like
jazz,
where's that coming from?
Jazz does nothing for me. I don't even know how what color the person plinking away on the piano is.
I love jazz, but
I know I've studied
but
here's
the difference. Here's the difference between me and a lot of the other folks who say I don't like something. I get no enjoyment from not liking it. The people who I only like elevated horror. It's like, well, I'm sorry.
Anti-fans
are
the worst people on the planet. They suck the fun out of everything. They're just here to make you feel bad about what you like.
When I first got on the internet in 1996, one of the first things I found was Spice Girls hate page, and I'm like, why would you do something like that? If you hate them, why would you devote so much energy toward them?
I went through that phase as a teenager, and then I got over it, and I will never go back. There you go.
It's like all the folks that are trashing people who like Taylor Swift. Taylor Swift also does nothing for me, but I don't like Taylor Swift. Well, slow golf clap for you.
Yeah.
Great.
No, I don't like Taylor Swift either, but a lot of people do, and
they
can listen to her, and that's fine, and I'll be over here listening to the stuff I like. It's okay. Let people like things. Also, Keith hopped on, and I want us to acknowledge that so that he doesn't have to just sit there being like, what did I walk into?
Well, I'm hoping that I walked into a situation in which you have all solved the question of what is horror.
Yes,
we were waiting for you.
Now we're just
talking about snobbery and art.
We're getting deep, man. We're getting deep. It's deep images.
Well, I wanted to say one thing. Even in classical music, you have the snobbery. Like, for instance,
right.
Like romantic music, we trash Mozart and anything before the 19th century. I had a huge fight going on. I mean, on my Facebook page, because I was saying how I really loved Mozart's Requiem, but none of the other Requiems really got to me. And someone said, "Oh, Mozart is trash. He's just really light and fluffy." And then someone came in and we had this huge argument about, who was better. And so even in classical music, you still get this.
Oh, I'm impressed.
Classical musicians are the
snobbiest. I love Michael Nyman, and people trash him.
Wait, hold on. Everybody's talking.
Yeah, I can't hear.
They trash Carl Jenkins.
Carl Jenkins, who?
Actually, the most famous piece Carl Jenkins wrote was this string piece that was famously used in a De Beers commercial, and it's from a longer piece, but that's one of the things he's actually most famous for.
Is he a contemporary
There's actually an article that says, "Is Carl Jenkins the Marmite of composers?"
Oh, Marmite.
But a lot of times I've noticed a lot of most living classical composers, especially if there's any kind of following for them, like Philip Glass or Michael Nyman, this other guy's so much better. And then the people like John Adams writes to appeal for critics, so there's a whole set. Oh, John Adams is so superior to Philip Glass and Michael Nyman.
Again, I take them one at a time.
I do like John Adams, but I don't.
I like some John Adams, but Philip Glass and Nyman to me are untouchable. But that's just me.
See, that's I think the difference between these internet gatekeepers and say people like us. I can tell a lot about a person when you have this big long thing. I really like this new song I found, and then there'll be people who jump in and say, "Oh, I hate them" and everything. Okay, that's one group of people, and then there's the group that's like, "Oh, you like Nirvana? You should listen to the Pixies because I think you probably like them."
Exactly.
So there's the people. There's the folks who, well, first of all, anyone who recommends the Pixies, even if it just comes out of the blue, I instantly like them. But there's those folks who. They want to share. Okay, here's something you like. Here's something I love, and I think you might.
It's a
love
yes
it too.
and.
Yeah.
That's what we're trying to do here.
I like progressive rock, and
liking what
like,
you
like. Progressive rock sucks because rock and roll is all about sex and drugs and pissing off your parents, and prog rock's all like about literature and stuff.
So
I love
really, if I was going to give my perspective on that, I don't mind people who don't like things because there's plenty of stuff I don't like, and I don't even mind them telling me that they don't like it. What I do mind is when they decide to shit on your parade.
Yeah.
And, that's the thing. It's like you said, if I came on and said, man, I went to that Taylor Swift movie last night and it was crazy, I loved it, and then the first thing that somebody feels like, oh, that guy said that, I got to get on his page,
right,
and say Taylor Swift sucks, man,
right? Like,
what? I just keep scrolling.
Yeah, what's the point? Yeah,
I just keep scrolling, and then Bill's example of Nirvana. I don't care for Nirvana at all, but I love the Pixies, and a bit, but that what you're saying, Bill, is great, because you're kind of saying, well, here's a touchstone, maybe this will open you up to this. And I've always tried that with people. Some people it works, some people it doesn't, and then but when it gets to the point where you can't be diplomatic, like if I said what you said on a Nirvana page on Facebook, and then somebody just asks me point blank, well, do you like Nirvana? I'd be like, hell no, I don't. Then it'd be like, well, then what do you I'd be like, okay, never mind. So best for me not to engage in that milieu, because there's no point in me,
now, but there
being
is
the spoiler.
There's that one though that just proves the rule, and that is Red Hot Chili Peppers. They're just the absolute worst, and there's no debate. I mean, I'm sorry.
Just what?
The absolute worst. That's just
also Nickelback.
Chili Peppers used to be okay, but Nickelback never was.
Okay, Henry, I'm blocking you right now for that.
No, I said okay. I didn't say great.
No, they're not even.
It's like there's no room.
We need a special session about this. Music.
Red Hot Chili Peppers were all right. They got worse.
The only thing I'm absolutely about is that.
Well, that's the thing. I mean, everybody has their different reality tunnel, and it's the same with movies. The worst.
Like I saw a list that had Emerson, Lake and Palmer as the number 2 worst rock band of all time, and I was like, "You're fucking crazy."
Wait, hold on. What? I need you to say that again, because I didn't quite catch it.
I saw a list that declared Emerson, Lake and Palmer the number 2 worst rock band of all time.
Well, they're objectively wrong.
Well, but here
they're objectively wrong.
That's just somebody who doesn't like prog rock.
They're not.
Yeah.
But Scott, first of all, if anyone who clicks on anything that says, "Here's 25 movies that haven't aged well," or 10 songs that are problematic
those
now,
lists are
why would you?
crap.
Why do you go there? It's so easy. It's lazy writing. It is so easy to write about why you don't like something. It's the easiest thing in the world.
I sometimes find those interesting, though, just to kind of understand where people are coming from on those things. I might not agree with them, but I find it interesting.
Cultural interest.
Well,
most of them feel like they were written by ChatGPT, though. Lately, I'm not being sarcastic.
Yeah, most of those
honestly believe
like they're really.
And don't even get me started on ChatGPT.
Yeah, but let me just say, I wrote comic graphic novel reviews and a handful of movie reviews.
I used to do that
for about 10 years for Ain't It Cool News before things went to hell. And
he wrote for them.
Yeah, I was part of the assholes that did the AICN comics.
You weren't an asshole though.
I was the professor, but
cool.
good group of guys there.
I had no idea.
And and I did that for about 10 years. And the thing about it is, very rarely did I just do a full-on negative review. Most of the time, if I felt inclined to talk about something and write something about it, it's because I liked it.
Right.
And it was only an occasional situation in which it was just such an abomination of an experience. Or in the worst case scenario, which I only happened a couple of times and I really hated even doing it, in which some independent creator, reached out, said, I want to give you this, for a review, and I would say, okay, I can accept it, but I can't guarantee a good review. And then, and it would be something that I couldn't really highly recommend. And it was a real queasy thing. A real queasy thing to try to feel obligated to write about it in a way that expressed the fact that it just wasn't very good, but that you appreciated the effort and all that kind of thing. But so I did that. But there were a couple of them where I just really went to town on somebody, and I regret kind of doing it, except for the fact that it was always the big guys. It's like for me, if I'm reviewing movies, a Spielberg movie is going to get a very different review than some guy who it's his first movie out of the block and it's $100,000 budget. Right. I judge things in a different categories based on what they bring to the table. A Spielberg movie, if it's dropping and I'm going to review it, I'm expecting this to be,
really tight
level, right? And if it's garbage, I'm gonna kind of really rip it up, right? But then it could be this little low budget thing that's not very good, but it entertained me, and I give it a real big thumbs up or something like that. Sure. And it's the same thing with the comics. It's like it may be a little guy and it's not that great, but it entertained me, and it's somebody else might like it. But then you get some piece of garbage that comes out with a lot of fanfare from, say, DC or Marvel, I might go after it with a hatchet, because that should not be the piece of garbage that it was.
They're capable of doing better.
Exactly. They should have. And they usually, in the cynicism of it, really would just piss me off. And then I would just go after it. And then, you know what? Brings us back to movies. Same thing in movies sometimes. It's like sometimes there's just this corporate cynicism that just it infiltrates every pore of the movie you're watching, and it just starts to make me angry when I'm watching it. Instead of entertained, I'm getting mad because of that, and you're
distracted by it. You can't get into it. Exactly. You can't be immersed,
and that's
because you're
that's when I go
beating
negative.
you over the head with their product. That's
well, yeah, and, or even their message.
Pepper.
Sometimes it's like they're clubbing me over the head with their message, and it's like there's a way to do that in a way that I respect, and then there's a way to do it that pisses me off, and that might get some kind of.
They seem to have lost that way largely, and then if you object to it, if you say this movie's terrible, it's like, well, you just didn't like the message. It's like, yeah, your message was fine. It's just
wrong place for it.
I like the messenger or the way the message is conveyed.
There's a way to express a message without being offensive sometimes
being an asshole
or just being offensive like stupid. Sometimes being offensive is the point.
I gotta go, but
hey, hold on, Keith.
Thanks a lot.
Justin, thank you.
I better go.
Bye, Justin.
Justin. Nice to catch Kaelyn. Okay.
Have a great night, mate.
And
yesterday I saw
that brings us back around to horror, because horror, I'll let you go here in a second, Scott. It brings us back around to horror because one aspect of horror is to offend, right? There's an aspect you want to offend your sensibilities. Anyway, go on, Scott.
Oh, yesterday I saw a film called The Angry Black Girl and Her Monster, and it was loosely inspired by Frankenstein. Mary Shelley got a special thanks credit. And I was looking at Letterboxd, and one of the reviews complained about there's a line trashing Columbus, and like, oh, that was such a cheap shot. And it's things like that. It's like, because it really was about what's really history, and what are the who are the good guys, like are the cops the good guys, and like the Chris, who's her older brother, and also the monster that she's resurrected, kills cops and stuff.
So do you feel like the message was conveyed well or poorly?
Sometimes it was a little on the nose. I wouldn't say I agreed with the person who said that it was too much to have the person trash Christopher Columbus.
No, he's pretty trashable. To me,
he's very trashable.
I mean, like, she picks it and says like,
"Oh, that's just one line."
This guy's a rapist and a human trafficker and stuff. But it was a throwaway line. It didn't like spend a lot of time on it. There was another line that referenced, "You don't want to end up looking like Emmett Till, who was only 2 years older than you when he was killed," and things like that.
Was this?
I don't think it may have been a little bit heavy-handed, but it wasn't so heavy-handed that it pissed me off.
Was it a contemporary film, or was this something?
Sounds like it would be in a Jordan Peele movie too.
Yeah. Oh yeah. See, where that line about Columbus would bother me was if it was a new movie made now that was supposed to be set maybe back in the 50s. or something. Because then if they drew that line, that's where you're retro.
This was definitely set now. It had like security guards pulling kids out of seats in the classroom and stuff like that. Yeah.
Then that's to me, that's totally acceptable.
That's contemporary. That's our political and cultural reality. That makes sense. It doesn't stick out as like, why are they saying that? It's like, no, that's something people, I can't tell you guys how many times I discussed the fact that Columbus was a terrible person because it's my field of study. Okay. It comes up, you know.
It's pretty easy.
I actually had someone say, how do you know that Columbus enjoyed raping the Indian women? It's like, because he wrote a diary and it's been published.
Because he did it more than once.
I literally saw a copy of Christopher Columbus's diary at a Walden Books, which I wasn't even expecting to see it there, but I happened to be browsing a Walden Books and I looked in the classic sections and there was Diary of Christopher Columbus. So,
but that whole comment is insanely misogynistic. I mean, who cares if he enjoyed or didn't enjoy it subjectively?
He still caused harm.
That's actually a distraction from the reality. It doesn't
like a
matter.
Straw man. He didn't enjoy it, so it's okay. Why did he do it then?
I killed these people, Judge, but I didn't enjoy it.
Yeah, I had to do it. The devil made me.
One time I had feel it's like, because like I said, you know, Columbus Day is fairly close to Halloween. I'm always like saying you should like, because one of the things Columbus did was he had like people wear their own severed hand on a chain if they didn't work hard enough around their neck. I was like, yeah, you should like get one of those a fake severed hand at Halloween store and a fake chain right here, and bring it to the Christopher Columbus parade worn around your neck and like. And be a big protest to the Columbus Day parade.
Oh my God!
Indigenous Peoples Day, aka fuck Christopher Columbus Day.